Tell me how to fix it. Ethan shifted to face her fully. Tell me what you need and I'll make it happen. Belle took a breath, organizing her thoughts. I need to be included in decisions that affect me. Not informed after the fact, included from the beginning. If you're worried about my safety, we discuss it together and find solutions we both agree on. Okay, that's fair. I need the security to be as unobtrusive as possible. I understand it's necessary, but I can't feel like I'm being watched every second. We can adjust the protocols. Make the coverage less obvious. And I need you to trust that I'm capable of making reasonable decisions about my health and my pregnancy. I'm going to be a doctor, Ethan. I understand risk assessment and medical care. When I say I can handle something, I need you to believe me. Ethan was quiet for a moment, wrestling with instincts that screamed at him to wrap Belle in layers of protection. I trust you, he said finally. But Belle, sometimes there will be threats you're not equipped to handle. Times when you need to let the security do their job and trust us in return. Can you do that? Yes. As long as I understand what's happening and why. Then we have a deal. Ethan pulled her into his lap, arms wrapping securely around her. I'll do better. We all will. No more making decisions about you without including you. I promise. Belle settled against his chest, feeling the rapid beat of his heart begin to slow as tension bled from his frame. Tell me about Elena, she said softly. Not just how she died, who she was. What you loved about her. Ethan stiffened briefly, then relaxed again. She was a classical pianist. Brilliant, disciplined, passionate about music the way you're passionate about medicine. How did you meet? At a charity gala. She was performing and I couldn't stop watching her. After the concert, I introduced myself and asked her to dinner. She said no. A small smile curved Ethan's mouth at the memory. Said she didn't date men who wore more expensive watches than her piano cost. Belle laughed despite herself. But you won her over eventually. Eventually. It took months of pursuing her, proving I was interested in her and not just the conquest. She challenged me. Made me think about things beyond business and money. Made me better. She sounds wonderful. She was. Ethan's arms tightened around Belle. But she's gone and you're here. You're my present and my future, Belle. You and our baby. I know I need to stop letting fear of the past dictate how I handle the present. But it's hard. I know. We'll figure it out together. Belle tilted her head back to look at him. That's what partners do, right? Figure things out together? Right. Ethan captured her mouth in a kiss that started gentle and deepened into something more desperate, more claiming. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. I love you, Ethan murmured against her lips. More than I thought possible to love another person. I love you too. Even when you're being an overprotective caveman. That startled a laugh out of Ethan, genuine and warm. Caveman? You've got the chest-beating thing down pat, Belle teased. My. Protect. No one touch. Accurate, Ethan conceded, unapologetic. You are mine, and I will protect you. And heaven help anyone who tries to touch you with ill intent. The possessiveness should probably have bothered Belle more than it did. Instead, she found it oddly comforting, knowing that this powerful, brilliant man had chosen her, claimed her, would move heaven and earth to keep her safe. As long as that protectiveness didn't cross into control, she could accept it. Could even appreciate it. Have you eaten? Ethan asked, ever practical. You and Peanut need proper nutrition. Lunch was enough. Though I could probably eat again. Belle's stomach chose that moment to growl, making them both smile. Okay, definitely could eat again. Let's go see what Mr. O has prepared. He's been researching pregnancy nutrition all week. They made their way to the dining room, where Mr. O had indeed prepared a spread that looked designed specifically for Belle's needs. Lean proteins, colorful vegetables, whole grains, and plenty of fruit. The older man hovered anxiously until Belle praised the food, then retreated with a satisfied smile. Ethan watched Belle eat with barely concealed satisfaction, occasionally adding items to her plate when she seemed to be slowing down. The OB appointment is tomorrow at 10, he reminded her. I'll pick you up at the hospital. You're coming? Belle tried to hide her pleasure at the idea. Wouldn't miss it. This is our baby, Belle. I'm going to be there for every appointment, every ultrasound, every milestone. His hand found hers across the table. I'm in this completely. Good. Belle squeezed his fingers. Because I'm going to need you. Especially when I get huge and uncomfortable and probably incredibly cranky. I look forward to every minute of it. They finished dinner in comfortable conversation, the earlier tension dissolved. When Belle yawned for the third time, Ethan guided her upstairs to their room. She went through her evening routine on autopilot, exhaustion from the emotional day catching up with her. Ethan joined her in bed, pulling her against his chest. "Thank you," he murmured into her hair. "For being patient with me. For understanding where the protectiveness comes from even when it drives you crazy." "Thank you for listening," Belle countered. "For being willing to adjust. That means everything to me." They lay in silence for a while, Belle drifting towards sleep while Ethan remained awake, thoughts churning. The threats Max had briefed him on earlier kept circling through his mind, cryptic messages that might mean nothing or might herald real danger. He'd promised Belle inclusion, promised to trust her strength. But some things he couldn't share without terrifying her. The balance would be difficult to maintain. But for Belle, for their child, Ethan would walk that razor's edge for as long as necessary. Would do whatever it took to keep them safe while respecting Belle's autonomy. His phone buzzed silently on the nightstand. A text from Max: update on threat analysis in morning. Nothing urgent. Ethan acknowledged the message and set the phone aside. Nothing urgent. He'd take that victory for now. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. The OB appointment, continued security briefings, the acquisition deal that still needed closing. But tonight, he had Belle safe in his arms, their baby growing strong, and a future that felt simultaneously terrifying and impossibly precious. "Ethan?" Belle's sleepy voice broke the silence. "Stop thinking so loud. I can feel your brain working." He huffed a quiet laugh. "Sorry? Go back to sleep. Only if you sleep too. Doctor's orders." "Yes, ma'am." Ethan closed his eyes, focusing on the warmth of Belle against him, the soft sound of her breathing. Eventually, the day's tensions released their hold and he drifted off, dreaming of a future where the threats were neutralized and his family was safe. Outside, security rotations changed shifts. Cameras swept the grounds in endless patterns. And somewhere in the city, unknown eyes watched the Delville Empire, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But for now, in the sanctuary of their room, Belle and Ethan slept peacefully, unaware of the storm gathering on the horizon. Morning light filtered through the curtains, painting soft gold across Belle's face. Ethan had been awake for an hour already, content to watch her sleep, the way her lashes rested against her cheeks, the slight curve of her lips, the unconscious way her hand had drifted to rest over her still flat abdomen even in sleep. Their child was in there, barely the size of a plum now but growing stronger every day. The thought filled Ethan with a mixture of wonder and bone-deep terror that he was learning to navigate. Today they'd see their baby for the first time. Hear the heartbeat. Make it real in a way that even Belle's positive pregnancy test hadn't quite accomplished. Belle stirred, her eyes fluttering open to find Ethan already watching her. "How long have you been awake?" "A while. Didn't want to wake you." She stretched languidly, cat-like, before checking the time on her phone. "We have 2 hours before we need to leave." "Plenty of time." "Plenty of time for what?" Ethan asked, though the mischievous glint in Belle's eye gave him a fair idea. "For this." She shifted, straddling his lap in one smooth motion that made Ethan's breath catch. "The pregnancy books say the first trimester can increase libido. I'm just following medical advice." Ethan's hands found her hips, thumbs stroking across the smooth skin exposed where her sleep shirt had ridden up. Wouldn't want to argue with medical advice. What followed was slow and tender, the kind of intimacy that spoke of more than just physical desire. When they finally lay tangled together afterward, both breathing hard, Ethan pressed a kiss to Belle's temple. "Good morning to you too," he murmured, making her laugh, that bright, uninhibited sound that never failed to make his chest tight. They eventually made their way through morning routines. Belle stood in front of the mirror, turning sideways to examine her profile. "Do I look different to you?" Ethan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and resting his chin on her shoulder. "You look beautiful. Same as always." "I feel different. Like my body knows something's changed even if it doesn't show yet." Her hands covered his where they rested against her stomach. "In a few months, I won't be able to see my feet. I'll describe them to you daily." Belle elbowed him gently, but she was smiling. They dressed in comfortable clothes, Belle in leggings and an oversized sweater that Ethan recognized as one of his own, him in dark jeans and a Henley. Casual, domestic, nothing like the power couple image the media loved to paint of them. Breakfast was a quiet affair. Mr. O had prepared Belle's current favorites, scrambled eggs with avocado, fresh berries, and whole grain toast. She ate with the single-minded focus of someone fueling for the day ahead while Ethan nursed his coffee and reviewed emails on his phone. "Any word from Max?" Belle asked, proving she'd been paying more attention than he'd thought. Ethan looked up, caught. They'd agreed on honesty, on inclusion. He sent an update last night. Nothing urgent, they're still analyzing some communications that came in. He'll brief me this afternoon. Communications? Like threats? Potentially. Most turn out to be empty noise from internet trolls. But we investigate everything. Ethan set his phone aside, giving Belle his full attention. I promise I'll tell you if anything credible develops. But right now there's nothing actionable. Belle nodded slowly, processing. Okay. Thank you for telling me. Always. They finished breakfast and headed out to the car. Mr. Mack was waiting, along with a second vehicle that would follow at a discreet distance. Part of the enhanced security Belle was trying to accept. The drive to Dr. Sarah Chen's office took 30 minutes through morning traffic, giving them time to sit in comfortable silence, hands linked across the seat. Dr. Chen's practice was in an upscale medical building in the heart of the city's hospital district. Pete had recommended her specifically, one of the best maternal-fetal medicine specialists in the country, with a reputation for being both brilliant and compassionate. The waiting room was designed for comfort rather than efficiency, with plush chairs, soft lighting, and calming colors that reminded Ethan more of a spa than a medical office. A nurse called them back almost immediately, showing them to an exam room that continued the soothing aesthetic. Dr. Chen will be right with you. Belle, if you could change into this gown, we'll get started with the ultrasound. Belle took the gown and disappeared behind a privacy screen while Ethan settled into the chair beside the exam table. His heart was hammering harder than it had during any business negotiation, any high-stakes deal. This was different. This mattered in ways that quarterly earnings and market share never could. Belle emerged in the hospital gown, looking simultaneously vulnerable and determined as she climbed onto the exam table. Ethan immediately moved to her side, taking her hand. Her fingers were cold, trembling slightly. Nervous? He asked softly. Terrified, Belle admitted. What if something's wrong? What if? Then we handle it together, Ethan interrupted gently. But Belle, everything's going to be fine. You're healthy, strong. Our baby is going to be perfect. A knock at the door announced Dr. Chen's arrival. She was a petite woman in her early 50s, with kind eyes and an air of calm competence that immediately put Ethan at ease. Behind her came an ultrasound technician wheeling the machine. Belle, Ethan, wonderful to meet you both. Dr. Chen shook their hands before pulling up a stool. I understand you're about 10 weeks along based on your last menstrual period? Yes, Belle confirmed. Though I wasn't tracking closely. My cycles have always been irregular. That's fine. The ultrasound will give us an accurate dating. Dr. Chen pulled up Belle's chart on a tablet. Pete sent over your initial blood work. Everything looks excellent. Good hormone levels, no concerning markers. How have you been feeling? Tired? Emotional? My sense of smell is crazy. I can detect things from across a room now. Belle managed a small smile. And I'm hungry constantly, but only for specific things. All completely normal for first trimester. The fatigue should improve as you enter the second trimester, though the emotional volatility might stick around thanks to the hormones. Dr. Chen's smile was sympathetic. Fair warning, pregnancy brain is real and it's going to get worse before it gets better. Wonderful, Belle muttered, making both Ethan and the doctor laugh. Let's take a look at your baby, shall we? Dr. Chen nodded to the technician, who began preparing the ultrasound machine. This will be a transvaginal ultrasound since you're still early. It gives us the best view at this stage. Belle tensed slightly and Ethan squeezed her hand. I'm right here. The technician worked efficiently, explaining each step as she positioned the probe. The room fell quiet except for the soft hum of the machine. Ethan found himself holding his breath, eyes fixed on the black and white screen that seemed to show nothing but shadows and static. Then suddenly there it was. A small shape appeared on the monitor, impossibly tiny, barely distinguishable from the surrounding tissue. But unmistakably there. Unmistakably human. There's your baby, Dr. Chen said softly, pointing to the screen. Measuring about 31 millimeters from crown to rump, which puts you at 10 weeks and 2 days. Right on track. Ethan couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. That tiny flickering shape was his child. His and Belle's. A piece of both of them, growing and developing inside the woman he loved more than life itself. Belle made a sound, half laugh, half sob, her free hand flying to her mouth. Tears streamed down her face as she stared at the screen. That's our baby? That's your baby, Dr. Chen confirmed. And if you look here, she pointed to a rapid flickering within the small form, that's the heartbeat. The technician adjusted a control and suddenly sound filled the room. A fast, rhythmic whooshing that reminded Ethan of horses galloping across a field. Strong and steady and absolutely perfect. Heart rate is 165 beats per minute, the technician reported. Excellent for this gestational age. Ethan felt moisture on his own cheeks and didn't care. He brought Belle's hand to his lips, pressing kisses across her knuckles while they both stared at the screen in awe. Their baby. Their little peanut, as Belle had taken to calling it. Real and alive and already loved beyond measure. Everything looks beautiful, Dr. Chin continued, pointing out various features on the screen. You can see the head here, already quite large relative to the body, which is normal. These are the arm buds and here are the legs. Your baby is very active right now, which is a great sign. Indeed, the tiny forms seem to be moving, shifting position in small jerky motions that Belle couldn't yet feel. But someday soon she would. Someday soon, that flutter of movement would become kick strong enough for Ethan to feel through her skin. Can we have pictures? Belle asked, voice thick with emotion. Of course. We'll print several for you and I can also send the images digitally if you'd like. The technician was already tapping commands into the machine, capturing different angles of their baby. Dr. Chin continued the examination, measuring various aspects of the fetus and checking the surrounding structures. Placenta looks healthy and well positioned. Amniotic fluid levels are perfect. No concerning markers for genetic abnormalities, though we'll do more detailed screening at your next appointment. Next appointment? Ethan asked, finally finding his voice. In 4 weeks. We'll do another ultrasound and some additional blood work. At that point, we can also discuss whether you want to know the baby's sex, assuming they cooperate and let us see. Dr. Chin smiled at them. For now, everything looks textbook perfect. You're doing great, Belle. The technician removed the probe and Belle sat up slowly, still looking dazed. Dr. Chin pulled up her stool closer. Let's talk about what to expect over the next few weeks. The first trimester is almost behind you, which means the risk of miscarriage drops significantly. You should start feeling more energetic soon, though some fatigue is normal throughout pregnancy. She went through a list of dietary recommendations, prenatal vitamins to continue taking, activities to avoid or modify. Ethan listened intently, mentally cataloging every instruction. Belle asked intelligent questions about her hospital work and physical limitations, seeking to understand exactly what she could safely do. As for your internship, Dr. Chin said, addressing the elephant in the room, I understand there's been some discussion about modifying your schedule. Belle's expression shuddered slightly. Yes. My program director adjusted my assignments. Good. I'm going to be honest with you, Belle. The hours medical residents work are brutal on anyone, let alone a pregnant woman. The lack of sleep, the physical demands, the stress. None of that is ideal for you or your baby. Dr. Chen's tone was kind but firm. I'm not saying you can't work. You absolutely can and should continue your training. But reasonable accommodations aren't weakness. They're smart medicine. I know, Belle said quietly. I'm still adjusting to accepting help. Then adjust faster, Dr. Chin said with a smile that softened the words. Because in about 7 months, you're going to have a newborn who won't care about your pride or your need for independence. Might as well practice accepting help now. Despite herself, Belle laughed. Point taken. They wrapped up the appointment with Dr. Chin, scheduling the next visit and providing her direct line for any concerns that arose. Don't hesitate to call, she instructed. No question is too small or too silly. And Ethan, she turned to him, make sure she actually rests. Medical professionals are notoriously bad at following their own advice. I'll do my best, Ethan promised, though both he and Dr. Chin knew that managing Belle would be an ongoing challenge. They left the office with a folder full of ultrasound images and hearts full of emotions too big to name. Ethan kept one arm around Belle as they walked to the car, needing the physical contact to ground himself in reality. They'd seen their baby, heard the heartbeat, made it real in a way that transcended the positive pregnancy test and morning sickness. Mr. Mack held the door while they climbed into the back seat. Ethan immediately pulled Belle against his side, and she went willingly, head resting on his shoulder. I can't believe that's our baby, she whispered. It doesn't feel real. I know. Ethan pulled out one of the ultrasound pictures, studying the grainy black and white image. Their child looked like an alien, oversized head, tiny limbs, barely human. But to him, it was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen. Belle's hand covered his on the picture. We're really doing this. We're going to be parents. Best decision I ever made, Ethan murmured, pressing a kiss to her hair. You and Peanut, you're everything. They rode in comfortable silence for a while before Belle's phone started buzzing with messages. She pulled it out, her expression softening as she read. Shine and Phil are asking how the appointment went. Can I tell them? Of course. They're your friends. Belle typed rapidly, then showed Ethan the screen where she'd sent one of the ultrasound images to her friends. Responses came flooding back almost immediately, excited emojis, congratulations, demands for more details. Your family should know too, Belle said, looking up at Ethan. Should we stop by the main mansion? Ethan checked his watch. It was nearly noon. Lucas would be at the office, but Mariel would likely be home. Let's do it. Mom will kill us if we wait. He instructed Mr. Mack to change course, heading toward the Delville family estate. The main mansion was only 15 minutes away, a sprawling property that made Ethan's own house look modest by comparison. They pulled through the gates, waving at security who'd clearly been notified of their arrival. Mariel met them at the door, her face lighting up when she saw them. Belle? Ethan. I wasn't expecting you today. We had the first ultrasound appointment, Belle explained, practically vibrating with excitement now. We wanted to show you. Oh my God, come in, come in. Mariel ushered them inside, calling out for Cassie, who appeared from somewhere deeper in the house. Girls, they have pictures. They gathered in the sitting room, Mariel and Cassie flanking Belle on the sofa while Ethan remained standing, unable to settle. Belle pulled out the folder of ultrasound images, spreading them across the coffee table. This is your grandchild, she said, pointing to the largest, clearest image. 10 weeks and 2 days. Heart rate is 165 beats per minute. Mariel pressed both hands to her mouth, tears already streaming down her face. Oh, Belle. Oh, my sweet girl, this is beautiful. Cassie leaned in, studying the pictures with the analytical eye of someone who'd grown up around medical discussions. Everything looks good? No concerns? Perfect, Ethan confirmed. Dr. Chin said everything is developing exactly as it should. Next appointment is in 4 weeks, and if the baby cooperates, we might be able to find out the sex. Do you want to know? Mariel asked, still clutching one of the images. Belle and Ethan exchanged a look. They hadn't actually discussed it yet. I think so? Belle said uncertainly. What do you think? I want to know, Ethan admitted. I want to be able to picture them completely, know if we're having a son or a daughter. But it's your call, baby. Then we'll find out, Belle decided. I want to know too. Want to start planning and preparing properly. Cassie was grinning now, all traces of her usual cool composure gone. I'm going to be an aunt. A real aunt. Parky's going to lose his mind. Where is Park? Ethan asked, realizing his brother's car had been in the driveway. Home office on a conference call. Cassie stood. I'll get him. He needs to see this. She disappeared, and they could hear her shouting up the stairs about being an aunt and Park needing to get his ass downstairs immediately. Mariel was still studying the ultrasound images, tracing the outline of the tiny form with one gentle finger. You know, she said softly, when I was pregnant with Ethan, ultrasounds weren't nearly this clear. We could barely make out anything beyond a blob shape. This is incredible, you can see the features, the limbs. Medical technology has come so far. Did you know what you were having? Belle asked. With Ethan and the others? We knew. Lucas wanted to know with all 3 pregnancies. He's a planner, needs to have every detail mapped out in advance. Mariel smiled at the memory. Though with Park and Cassie being twins, that threw him for a loop. Suddenly we needed 2 of everything. Park appeared then, looking harried from whatever call Cassie had pulled him from. What's the emergency? Cassie was completely incoherent about. Oh. He stopped short, seeing the ultrasound images spread across the table. You had the appointment. This morning, Belle confirmed, holding up one of the pictures. Meet your niece or nephew, Parky. Park crossed the room in 3 long strides, taking the image from Belle with a reverence that surprised Ethan. His brother stared at the picture, expressions cycling through shock, wonder, and something that looked suspiciously like tears. It's real, Park said unnecessarily. It's actually real. Very real, Ethan confirmed. With a strong heartbeat and perfect development. I'm going to be an uncle. Park sank onto the arm of the sofa, still staring at the ultrasound. There's going to be a tiny human calling me Uncle Parky. Absolutely not, Ethan said immediately. We're not corrupting my child with ridiculous nicknames. Too late, Cassie declared. I'm going to be Auntie Cassie. Park gets to be Uncle Parky. Those are the rules. There are no rules. I'm making the rules. Dad will side with us, Park pointed out. He'll want a silly grandfather nickname. Pop-Pop maybe. Or Gramps. Mariel was laughing now, watching her children bicker with obvious delight. Your father will be Grandpa Lucas and I'll be Grandma Mariel, thank you very much. The rest of you can fight over your titles. Belle was grinning, looking more relaxed than Ethan had seen her in days. This was what family should be, chaotic and loud and full of love. Exactly the environment he wanted their child to grow up in. His phone buzzed with an incoming call. Max. Ethan's good mood dimmed slightly as he stepped away to answer. Yes. Sir, I have the updated threat analysis. Can you talk? Ethan glanced back at his family, all clustered around the ultrasound images and talking over each other. Give me the summary. Full briefing later. 2 of the 3 communications appear to be from the same source. We've traced the IP routing. Cybercrimes is working on a physical location. The 3rd is still under investigation. Level of concern? Moderate to high. The language suggests familiarity with your schedule and the family's movements. Could be inside information or very dedicated surveillance. Ethan's jaw clenched. Increase security protocols to level 3. Full spectrum monitoring. I want to know if anyone so much as breathes wrong near my family. Already in progress, sir. I'll have a full report ready by 3 this afternoon. My office. And Max, this stays quiet. Belle knows we're investigating, but I don't want specifics shared until we have actionable intel. Understood. Ethan ended the call and turned to find Belle watching him, concern etched on her face. She excused herself from the others and came to his side. That was Max, she asked quietly. Yes. Following up on the communications I mentioned. Nothing concrete yet, but they're working on it. Belle searched his expression, clearly sensing there was more he wasn't saying. But she didn't push, demonstrating the trust they'd agreed to build. Okay. You'll tell me if it becomes something I need to worry about? The moment it does, Ethan promised. Right now, there's nothing that requires action beyond what we're already doing. She nodded, accepting his word. Ethan pulled her against his chest, breathing in her scent and letting it ground him. Somewhere out there, someone was watching his family. Making threats that might be empty or might be the prelude to something worse. But here in this moment, Belle was safe. Their baby was healthy and growing. His family was together and happy. He would do whatever necessary to keep it that way. Come on, Belle murmured, tugging him back toward the others. Your mom wants to know if we have name ideas yet. We barely found out we're pregnant, Ethan protested, but he let her lead him back to the group. The conversation shifted to baby names, nursery themes, and Mariel's insistence that they needed to start shopping immediately despite being months away from needing anything. Ethan let it wash over him, contributing when prompted but mostly just watching Belle interact with his family. She fit so perfectly here as if she'd always been meant to be a Delville. The way she laughed at Park's terrible suggestions, the gentleness with which she let Mariel plan and fuss, the easy camaraderie with Cassie that had developed over recent weeks. This was his family now, expanded and strengthened by Belle's presence. His phone buzzed again. A message from Pete. Heard about the appointment. Congratulations. Need those ultrasound pics for my medical analysis. Also my world's best uncle collection. Ethan showed the message to Belle, who immediately pulled out her phone to send Pete the images. Within seconds, Pete responded with a string of celebratory emojis and a demand to know when they were having dinner so he could properly celebrate. Tonight, Belle decided. Everyone should come over. We can make it a proper announcement dinner. I'll have Mr. O prepare something special, Ethan agreed, already mentally reviewing his schedule for what could be pushed to accommodate the evening. Nothing was more important than this, than family gathered to celebrate new life. They spent another hour at the main mansion before heading back to Ethan's place. Belle dozed off during the drive, the emotional intensity of the morning catching up with her. Ethan let her sleep, cradling her against his chest while silently reviewing everything Max had told him. Moderate to high threat level. Inside information or dedicated surveillance. Neither option was acceptable, but both required careful handling. He couldn't lock Belle away, she'd fight him tooth and nail, and rightfully so. But he could tighten the web of security around her until nothing and no one could reach her without his knowledge. The car pulled through the gates of his mansion and Ethan gently woke Belle. She blinked up at him, momentarily disoriented, before smiling. Sorry, didn't mean to fall asleep on you. You're growing a human. You're allowed to be tired. Ethan helped her from the car, keeping one protective hand at the small of her back as they entered the house. Mr. O greeted them with his usual warmth, immediately launching into questions about the appointment. Belle indulged him, showing off the ultrasound pictures while Mr. O exclaimed over them with genuine delight. "Shall I begin preparations for this evening's dinner, sir?" the butler asked Ethan. "Please. The whole family will be here, Lucas, Mariel, Park, Cassie, and Pete. Something special but not overly formal. I have just the menu in mind. And sir, might I suggest champagne for the others and sparkling cider for Mrs. Delville?" "Perfect." Belle yawned, drawing both men's attention. "Sorry? I think I need a nap." "Go," Ethan urged. "I have the briefing with Max in an hour, but I'll come up after and join you." She kissed him softly before heading upstairs. Ethan watched until she disappeared from view, then turned to Mr. O. "The security increase, has it been disruptive?" "Not at all, sir. The additional personnel have been very professional. Mrs. Delville hasn't noticed, which I believe was the intention." "Good. That continues. If anything seems off, anything at all, you contact me immediately." "Of course, sir." Ethan retreated to his office, using the time before Max's arrival to work through emails and handle several pressing business matters. But his mind kept drifting back to that ultrasound image, to the rapid flutter of his child's heartbeat, to Belle's tears of joy. Everything he'd built, the empire, the wealth, the power, suddenly had new purpose. It wasn't just about legacy anymore. It was about providing for his child, creating a world where they could grow up safe and loved and free to become whoever they wanted to be. He would burn it all down if necessary to protect them. Max arrived precisely at 3, carrying a tablet and looking grim. Ethan gestured him to a chair and closed the office door. "Show me everything." Max's fingers moved across the tablet screen, pulling up encrypted files that made Ethan's jaw tighten with each passing second. The head of security had worked for the Delville family for 12 years. He knew how to read threats, how to distinguish genuine danger from empty posturing. The fact that his expression remained severe told Ethan everything he needed to know before a single word was spoken. "We've isolated 3 distinct communications over the past 72 hours, Max began, projecting the first message onto the large screen mounted on Ethan's office wall. This one came through an anonymous email service with multiple proxy layers. The text appeared, stark black letters against white background. "The prince builds his castle on sand. How deep are the foundations when the tide rises? Congratulations on your expanding empire. Empires fall. Families crumble. Children inherit their father's sins." Ethan's hands clenched on the armrests of his chair. "Received when?" "Monday night. 11:47 p.m. Routed through servers in 7 different countries before reaching our system. Cybercrimes has been working backward through the chain, but whoever sent this knows what they're doing." "The language," Ethan said, forcing his analytical mind to override the visceral reaction. "It's educated. Deliberate. This isn't some random troll." "Agreed." The reference to expanding empire and children suggests knowledge of Mrs. Delville's pregnancy. Max pulled up the second communication. This one arrived Wednesday morning via encrypted messaging app. Same proxy structure, likely same source. "The princess carries precious cargo. Gold attracts thieves. How much is a Delville heir worth on the open market? Ask Elena." The room temperature seemed to drop 20 degrees. Ethan was on his feet before he realized he'd moved, every muscle coiled with rage so intense it threatened to choke him. "They mentioned Elena." "Yes." Max's voice remained professionally neutral, though his expression reflected understanding of what that name meant to Ethan. "That's what elevated this from moderate to high concern. Whoever sent this has detailed knowledge of your personal history. Elena died 5 years ago. The details were kept private. Only family and close friends knew the full story." Ethan paced to the window, staring out at the manicured grounds without seeing them. "How many people have that information?" "We're compiling a list." "But sir, there's another possibility." Max hesitated, clearly weighing his words. "The accident was investigated. Police reports, insurance claims, medical examiner files, all of that is technically accessible if someone knows where to look and has the right resources." "You think this is someone who researched my past?" "I think it's someone who wants you to know they've done their homework. The mention of Elena is strategic, designed to provoke an emotional response, to make you feel vulnerable." It was working. Ethan's hand pressed against the cool glass, trying to ground himself. Elena's death had nearly destroyed him. The guilt, the what-ifs, the crushing weight of grief that had taken years to process. Now someone was weaponizing that pain, turning it into a tool to threaten Belle and their child. "Show me the third communication," Ethan said, his voice cold enough to frost. Max complied. This message was different, shorter, more direct. "Protection is an illusion. Money can't buy safety. Ask your father about the factory. Some debts are paid in blood. The factory, Ethan repeated. He's referring to the incident 3 years ago. Almost certainly. Which again demonstrates insider knowledge or extensive research into family history. Max zoomed in on certain words. The phrasing, debts paid in blood, is particularly concerning. It suggests vendetta rather than financial motivation. Ethan turned from the window, mind racing through possibilities. My father made enemies building this empire. We all have. But most of those conflicts were resolved through legal channels or business maneuvers. Who would hold a grudge strong enough to threaten my pregnant wife? That's what we're investigating. Max pulled up another screen, this one showing a web of connections and potential suspects. We've identified 47 individuals or entities with documented grievances against Delville Industries over the past decade. Of those, 12 have criminal records. 5 have made previous threats against the family. Prioritize anyone with violent history or connection to the factory incident. Already done. We're running deep background on the top 15 suspects. Financial records, communications, known associates. If any of them have suddenly become active or changed patterns, we'll find it. What about surveillance on Belle? Any suspicious activity at the hospital or her apartment? Nothing overt. But sir, Max hesitated again, we did identify something that concerns me. There's a maintenance worker at the hospital who started 3 weeks ago. Background check came back clean, but the timing coincides with when news of Mrs. Delville's connection to your family became public. Ethan's focus sharpened. You think he's a plant? I think the timing is suspicious. We're conducting additional vetting, checking his previous employment claims, interviewing references, tracking his movements. So far, nothing conclusive. I want 24-hour monitoring on him. If he breathes wrong, I want to know about it. Understood. They spent the next hour reviewing security protocols, identifying potential vulnerabilities, and discussing enhanced measures. Max had already implemented several changes without Ethan's explicit approval, a testament to how seriously he took the threats. Additional plainclothes security at the hospital, both inside and monitoring external access points. Belle's vehicle had been fitted with military-grade tracking and communication systems. Even her personal devices had been secured with additional encryption. What about the dinner tonight? Ethan asked. The family's coming here to celebrate. We'll have additional perimeter security. I've coordinated with the team at the main mansion. Your father's detail will be integrated with ours for the evening. The gatehouse will run enhanced screening on any vehicles approaching the property. The family can't know the full extent of this. My mother would panic, and Belle? Ethan paused, wrestling with his promise to include her versus his instinct to shield her. Belle knows we're investigating threats, but these specific details would terrify her. The decision is yours, sir. Though I would point out that Mrs. Delville is remarkably intelligent. She may notice increased security measures and draw her own conclusions. Let me handle Belle. You focus on finding whoever is behind this before they escalate from threats to action.